I was like, oh my gosh, Tamsen, get it together. Like, why can't you just get it together? Make yourself go to sleep, make yourself lose weight, have more willpower. And so I hear that in a lot of women now. And it makes me sad that I did that to myself.
That always is heartbreaking to me because it almost as if as women, we've been socialized to think that, oh my, we have to just push past it. This episode was brought to you by Alloy Health and Rivian. Our guest today is Tamsen Fadal, one of my good friends and one of the most prolific women in the menopause movement. She is a New York Times bestselling author of How to Menopause and the executive producer of the documentary M Factor. Tamsen, we met almost 3 years ago, believe it or not, at a menopause event. And Tamsen was moderating, and I was also doing one of the interviews, and we hit it off immediately. It wasn't like we took any time. And I think that as soon as it was over, we're like, okay, let's get to the bar. Okay, we need to have debrief and talk about all this menopause stuff.
One of many.
If you could roll back time for 10 years ago, could you have ever imagined that you would not only be one of the most recognizable faces on the internet, but that you would have been talking about menopause?
Well, you're part of the reason that I'm talking about menopause. You know that, right? Because I know you have to remember we were at an event, one of our many events together, and I said, Dr. Sharon, I'm thinking of walking away from my job of 30 years as a journalist because I really feel this pull to be talking about this full out and, educating as much as I can as a journalist. And what do you think? And you said, I think you're never going to look back and you're going to wonder why you didn't do it sooner. And I never forgot those words. So you are a big part of, if not the reason that I walked away and I am where I am today. And I couldn't be more grateful. And I'll never forget that. When I had my incident, which I've talked about in the past, but I was anchoring the news every night. I did 5 shows a day, 5 days a week, for a while, years leading up to when I really realized what was going on, or finally realized what was going on. I was in menopause. I was having brain fog, but I didn't know the word for it. I just thought I was stressed out because I couldn't remember words. And I'd look at the teleprompter where we would read the news every night, and I'd look at something that I was really familiar with, and it wouldn't come out of my mouth. One night in 2019, I was anchoring the news and we were in a commercial break right before we were going to go into our business report for the night. And I wound up having what I later realized was a hot flash, just kind of this heat, and you know the story, through the center of my body, and sweat just sprung out everywhere. And then my heart was just racing out of control. And I thought, I'm going to pass out. I'm going to throw up. I'm going to fall off this stool that we sit on. We sat on these stools that are kind of up in the air behind the anchor desk. And I said, I think I need to get off the set. And one of the gentlemen, because it's a room of men, I said, I think you need to get off the set. He later told me, I thought you were having a heart attack. I didn't know what was going on. You were white and pasty and sweaty. And I'm like, oh. So he led me to the bathroom, and I just went right down to the floor to just cool my body off. I just didn't know what was happening. And I will say, never in my right mind would I laid on that bathroom floor ever, ever, ever. But I was so desperate to kind of cool my body down and stop my heart from racing that I just knew, I was like, get to the floor. And that started this search into what was going on. And I went to one doctor after another to try to figure it out. And I ended up with a note in my patient portal after some blood work that said, in menopause, ... any questions. And that was it. That was a diagnosis, and you be on your way. And that's how this all started.
Right. Good luck with that.
Good luck.
You're in menopause. What else do you need to know?
Yeah.
Well, you and I have a lot in common. And, and I think for both of us, we lost our mothers long before we would have had the opportunity to have the menopause conversation. But even with that, I'm convinced that even if my mother were alive, we still wouldn't have had the menopause conversation. It just wouldn't have happened because generationally, we don't talk about it. And, women, your story is so not uncommon in the sense that we kind of walk into this blindly. And, I think that knowing now what you know, what do you wish that you knew, say 10 years ago, before you got into this crisis situation on the news?
It's funny. I often think about that. I think like because I say a lot, oh, my mom, died at 51. I never had the conversation with her. I was young. I agree with you. I don't know that we would have had this conversation just because of the time and the shame that was wrapped around it. And it just wasn't what, people talked about. I guess what I wish I had known is a couple of things. I wish that back then, or even now, I wish that menopause wasn't so associated with old and age and kind of like done. I wish that, but I also wish I knew that there were things I could do back then, so I didn't have this big to-do list now. I feel like right now I'm sort of playing catch up a little bit, in understanding it and then trying to approach different solutions, right? We've all heard the studies and we did them on the news, eat this, don't eat that. Sleep here, don't do this, turn your lights on, turn them off, get outside. Here's the things to do for cholesterol or heart or brain, but never menopause. And I guess I wish I'd have taken a lot of the different advice that was, smart advice more seriously, but I didn't know that it was going to impact me. I didn't really understand that nutrition or movement or stress and hormones, I definitely didn't understand. And I wish I had, because I think I wouldn't have fought that for so long before I got on them. And I did. I fought them for a long time thinking, gosh, you know how to take care of yourself. You don't need to rely, have this crutch.
Right.
And I wish I had known then what I know now.
That's amazing to me, because I think that as women, we think that there's a certain requisite amount of suffering that we must do before we can ask for help. And that is really one of the myths that we are trying to dispel out here, that, suffering should not be your resting place. And you don't need to wait until you are so miserable you can, barely get out of bed. But I think that this is why I think it's so important what you do and having this conversation out loud, Tamsen, because you are bringing this message to so many women and being the face of menopause and understanding that the face of menopause is not an old lady. It's a vibrant person who is out there changing the world as we have it. Now, you have done a lot of things, Tamsen, but I also noticed that recently you sort of start reaching out and sort of bringing men into the conversation about menopause, because menopause is not just a woman's problem or a woman's issue, because I think that the more people in our world who understand what's going on, the better we'll be. So how have you been sort of broadening this conversation and bringing men into it?
Yeah. It's funny. When we first started this, I was like, men, this is like, we have to talk about this. They don't belong in this conversation. And people would be like, why is men in menopause? And I was one of the loudest voices saying that. But I realized after we went around the country with the documentary and we were talking to so many women, we produced the documentary. We were so lucky to have you be a part of it. And we had so many strong voices in that. And then in the room, when we would do a panel afterwards of doctors or experts, every location, we would get the question, like, how do we talk to our partners about this? How do I let my husband know what's going on? How do I talk to my, workplace about this? And I realized I was like, I kind of fought, going out there talking about men, because I thought I'd get a little like, oh gosh, we're putting men into this conversation. But we have to, because we live with them, we work with them, we raise them. And the fact that they are clueless, because we've been clueless for such a long time, was not right. And so I put together a little men's guide to, do like a 101 to explain it to it. It's real simple. It's like, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like the ABCs of menopause. But I really think it's an important part of the conversation, because I don't know that everybody is as comfortable as you or I would be explaining it, and feeling like comfortable in that conversation without feeling maybe judged, or maybe feeling like they didn't know how to bring up a conversation of lack of libido, or why they feel anxiety, or why they're not able to sleep. And, our society has made fun of those symptoms for such a long time. I think it's really important that it's taken seriously, especially by men.
It was funny. I think maybe a couple of years ago, Anne and Monica, who are our founders at Alloy, did a little simulation there, and they had men put on these vests to let them see what a hot flash felt like.
Yeah.
And, and they had no idea. And they were like, oh my God, this is terrible. How do women just walk around and do your work and go through the day feeling like this? But I really want to talk about, because I think that one of the most remarkable things that you have done is the documentary, The M Factor. Please give us that story, because I want to know everything about it. I want to know how you thought of the idea. And it's been shown in how many screenings have you had now of the M Factor?
Yeah, we've had over 1,000 in the US. And it's in 45 countries. It's been 45 countries and counting now. Yeah. Yeah. It's been incredible.
Wow.
It was a year ago. We released it in October of 2024 and World Menopause Weekend. And it's been incredible to see what's happened, but leading up to it, it was really difficult. Nobody wanted to talk about. When you say the two words documentary and menopause, like there's nothing, there's no selling point there. Like there's
true.
nothing
It's
sexy.
Right.
Which one do I not want to see more? The documentary or the menopause? And so, probably in retrospect, I would have tried to go out there and pitch it a little bit differently. But, I was introduced to one of my partners, Joanne Lamarca, by a mutual friend who was so tired of the two of us talking to her about menopause. She was like, you guys just talk to each other, because I don't want to hear the word anymore. I already went through it. I don't want to hear it. And then I met up with Denise Pines and Kobe Atlas, who are in LA, and both of them had done documentaries before. And I had said to Denise, we were on the phone discussing an event, and I said, yeah, I'm working on a documentary. And she goes, I'm working on a documentary. And I said, really? And so we got to talking, and I said, let's all of us come together and just do it together. And that's, I think, really so symbolic of this community, is like, let's just do it together. And that is what we did. We took both of our teams and brought them together and said, this is what we're going to do. We went out to pitch it, and we had one door after another, like shut in our face, like nobody wants a documentary about menopause. It's a niche audience. There's not going to be a lot of interest in that. Not going to be a lot of people that want to watch that. PBS said yes. And so we got to work on it. We self-funded that first documentary. And then eventually we had some funders come in on the back end to take part in like the editing process of going out there and, doing all these different cities. And we're so grateful to them, because we would not have ever been able to get the reach that we got from what we were trying to do. We did as many interviews as we could, and we found some women that were willing to open up and talk about it and put it together. And, you film hours and hours, and it all gets whittled down to just a short amount of time. But we were so excited once we got it done, and we were so scared. I was like, how are people going to receive this doc? Are they going to see themselves in it? We tried to talk about as many things as we could in the documentary to make sure that we talked about workplace. We talked about, we didn't even really touch perimenopause, to be honest, but we just wanted women to understand like symptoms. And we said that, the tagline was shredding the silence on menopause, because the goal of it was to open up the conversation and then see where it went from there. And I hope that's what we did. And it was really exciting to see women embrace it.
I cannot tell you how impressed I was with the documentary. And it's not just because I was in it. It was because there were so many voices. And I think that there was not a person who watches it who couldn't see themselves in their story represented in your documentary. So I have to say kudos to you for that. And we're going to make sure that in the show notes afterward, we make sure that people know how to access the M Factor, Shredding the Silence About Menopause, because it's that important. And given the fact that it's already been shown 1,000 times and people seek you out for this, it's not like you're saying, oh, please, someone show my documentary. They find you, right?
Yeah, it's been amazing. We did like a 10-city tour where we said we're going to bring it to different cities. And then women's organizations were like, we want to show it in our area. We want to show it in our library, our community center, our homes. And so we said, yes, take it. It was unbelievable. There was one group in, I think it was Seattle, that brought 800 women into a theater to watch this film. 800 women. I'm like, what? What? And they sent pictures. I was like in tears. We have like incredible connections in Asia, in the Middle East, in Canada, UK, Jamaica, Australia, all these different places where women will come together. And it doesn't matter if it's like 10 of them or 800 of them, but they're able to talk with each other. So for me, the most exciting part was what happens after the film. Like they watch the film and then they talk about the film. And that talking part, I think that they walk away, an hour and a half after talking.
But that belies this notion that people who thought when we started talking about this years ago, oh, menopause is having a moment.
Ugh.
It's having a moment. It's like, no, it's not. This is a movement. It is ongoing, and it's not. It's not at all declining, because there's another group of women every day that enters this space that hasn't heard this story before, no matter how many times we tell it. So yay for you on that. And when it comes to menopause, I think we are back and we are bigger and deafer. Okay. Yes. And for those of you who don't know me, I have a musical reference for everything. And that is bigger and deafer for you non-music fans. That's LL Cool J's second album. We're bigger and deafer.
I love that you always have a musical reference.
Always. I got a song for everything. But Tamsen, you have done so many things in your post-professional, let's just say your intended profession. Yeah. So we are now living in a world that we are doing things that certainly I didn't plan to do either when I left my job.
Neither.
What really gave you the courage and the confidence to be able to say, okay, I'm done with this. I'm on to something else. And I'm sure you never saw that it was going to be this big.
No.
But tell our listeners how important it is to be able to have the energy and stamina at 50 years old to be able to start something new.
Well, you know what's interesting? I love this conversation so much because, what happens, it starts in the doctor's office. Well, it starts, with all the symptoms. Then it goes to the doctor's office, right? Then you leave the doctor's office and you've got this other 360 of this other part of your life. It's the symptoms, and maybe you've gotten the symptoms taken care of, but maybe now you're asking yourself, now what? And I think I was doing that for a long time, even before this conversation. I don't know about you, but I even before this kind of came up, I was saying like, now what? I got to where I always wanted to be. Like I wanted to be in New York. I wanted to be anchoring the news. Like this was it. And then I got there for a while and I was like, I'm in my early 40s. I mean, this was like in my early 40s. And I went, what am I doing? Like, do I need to plan something else? Because when I came up in my career, I thought I was going to do news anchoring. That was it. I would, retire, because then you use the word retire all the time. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. Was that going to be traveling the world? I didn't know. But I have to tell you something. It was once I started feeling better and my mind was clear, and that really did have to happen first before I could do anything else. And I would sit on the anchor desk at night once I was introduced to the menopause and this conversation and the need. And I went, I was focused totally on that. I'd be like, how many women are in menopause? And then I'd look up and I was like, coming up live in New York today. I was so focused on this other thing. And it was just this draw that I couldn't let go of. And so it was important for me to feel good. And then it was important for me to figure out what I wanted to do next. I would wake up in the morning early. I go to bed late at night, and it's all I think about of how to move the ball forward, what to do next, how to get the word out more, what other ways we can educate and meet women where they're at. We have younger women that are coming up into this all the time. And then really what this next phase means, because it's not just menopause. Mm-hmm. It's, do I want another job? Do I want a different relationship? Or did I not find a relationship before and now I can focus on that? Or, what do I want to do after I'm done taking care of everybody else? And so I'm so fascinated with whether we call this the third or the fourth, the second, third, whatever chapter this is in our lives. I think of them as seasons more, because I don't know that we're only going to have 2 or 3, but I'm just so fascinated by what women are able to accomplish when I feel like they're bolder and they're wiser, and they're just more aware of what they want and what's going to please them now in this stage of life. And so it gets me excited.
And this is why I do what I do, because I want women to understand that, yes, there is life after menopause. Yes. But to be able to take advantage of that, it really requires that you are physically and emotionally and psychologically healthy. And preparing for that really starts in the perimenopause. It starts in your 30s and 40s. So you can, when you get to this point in your life where you are, probably the wisest and most knowledgeable you're ever going to be, that you have the stamina to be able to take advantage of it. Because I think that you and I have both seen and read a lot about what happens to women in midlife and how many of them are so debilitated by the symptoms of menopause. I mean, imagine being sleepless for, years on end, feeling fatigued and not yourself. And the brain fog, it really undermines your confidence. And a lot of women step away from the workplace when you are really able to contribute the most. But once you've done all you can do on the lifestyle front, don't put yourself last, or don't think that, I don't want to get up and give this presentation because I'm going to lose my train of thought, or maybe something's happening to me, and turn down that promotion or step back from the workforce, because it costs women money to do this. It costs families money to be able to do this, to not take advantage of your career opportunities. But I think you are. I love you, Tamsen. I really do.
I love you too.
Because you do. But you do so many things. You do things that I don't even have. I don't have the energy for. Now, granted, I'm a little bit older than you, so there's that. But you are out there on the day-to-day. So you've got an amazing social media presence where you are constantly sort of reminding women of what it looks like to be menopausal and what to do about it. How did, maybe you're just a natural because you're a media person, but they're really engaging. I watch them all the time.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure millions of other people do as well. How did that start? The social media piece?
When it was 2019 and I was home, so I used to do the news, and we would be behind the anchor desk for all these hours and hours and hours. And when 2019, that happened, 2020, the pandemic hit, and they moved my news studio into the back bedroom of our apartment in New York. And so I had a lot of time when I was doing the news from home, because I wasn't driving back and forth. And I'd jump in, I'd be in my shorts, in my little suit on top. I'd do the news, and that was when I was starting to do a lot of research on what I was dealing with menopause. I was like, I'm going to have to fix this naturally because I'm not going to do hormones. That was my whole thing. And I got on TikTok when I read a bunch of symptoms of menopause. And I'm like, this is crazy. So I jumped on TikTok and I literally just read the symptoms, just read. And that video just blew up. It was just like women, like, I have this. Oh, I have this. Is this it? Is it? And I'm like, I don't know any of these answers because I didn't know anything. And so then I started more research, and then I would go on again and talk about it. And then finally I was bold enough to go on Instagram, and I talked about, because remember my whole, I'm thinking all these people at work are going to hear me talk about menopause. I'm going to lose my job. They're going to think I've like aged out of my job. But I wound up, because that was what it was then, this is 2020 and now going into 2021. And I went on Instagram, and then that took on a life of its own. And then I started talking to younger women on there because I realized a lot were younger, trying to figure out what was going on with their moms, and started giving advice to younger women. And that was such a energizing boost for me to see that was helping. And I remember thinking, like, this is unbelievable that no one's talked about it. And so finally, I thought no one had talked about it. And then finally I looked up that number of 1 billion women by 2025. And then it's, 5 years away. And I thought, oh, there's a group of people out there that don't know what's happening. And I'm one of them. Because I thought my story was really unique, and it's really not.
At Alloy, we firmly believe that given good information, women are more than capable of making good decisions for themselves. If you've had thoughts around menopausal hormone therapy, but have not gotten a recommendation from your primary physician, connect with one of the menopause-trained doctors at Alloy. Here's how it works. Sign up and personalize your treatment. Fill out a quick intake to share your symptoms and goals. Match with a menopause doctor. Connect with a board-certified doctor in just hours. Easily manage your plan. Receive a treatment plan tailored to your body, your symptoms, and your life. Care delivered to your door. Get your prescription sent right to your doorstep. I am proud that Alloy is the only company that connects women with doctors in all 50 states and DC. And you have the ability to ask questions to that doctor for the entire time your prescription is active. No extra charges. And guess what? It's available to you online. No endless waits for a doctor's visit or in pharmacy lines. Just relief and results delivered right to you. Join the 95% of women who tried Alloy and saw relief in the first 2 weeks. Head to myalloy.com and tell them all about your symptoms, and you'll get a fully customized treatment plan. And you'll get $25 off your first order today when you use code TSO25. Head to myalloy.com and enter code TSO25 to get $25 off your first order. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Rivian and their all-electric, full-size SUVs and trucks made for all of life's adventures. Rivian just announced their all-new Rivian Quad, their fastest, most capable vehicle yet. Powered by 4 motors, 1 for each wheel, it gives you unmatched traction, control, and performance anywhere you are. On winding roads or off-road trails, the Quad is engineered for precision driving and maximum adventure. With a native NACS port, the Quad is compatible with 50,000 DC fast chargers, so getting back on the road is hassle-free. With beautifully designed interiors, tons of storage, and incredible capability inside and out, the Quad is made for everyday comfort and rugged utility. Plus, you'll love the tech. The Rivian experience gets better over time with software updates. The premium audio experience sounds as good as the ride feels. Premium audio is part of the Sound Plus Vision package in Quad and Tri vehicles and can be a paid upgrade in dual models. And the Rivian Autonomy Platform Plus, a paid subscription product, offers a full suite of advanced safety and driver assistance features. There is adaptive cruise control, active lane keeping, blind spot monitoring, and forward collision warning with automatic emergency braking. Check out the all-new, all-electric quad truck or SUV and the full lineup of vehicles now at Rivian.com. You know, I've been a physician for over 30 years, and something I've seen time and time again is how illness, especially cancer, doesn't just affect your body, it can impact your entire life. So what happens when you get a cancer diagnosis and you're faced with copays, deductibles, and treatment costs? What many don't realize is that even with good health insurance, it wasn't designed to cover everything. There can be a gap. And while the gap is a problem, Aflac can help be a solution. Aflac helps with expenses health insurance doesn't cover. You might know them as the famous duck, but there's so much more than that. Since 1957, Aflac has been a pioneer in cancer insurance. They offer supplemental insurance that pays cash to help with out-of-pocket expenses. Cancer is personal. Every journey is different. Aflac's cancer coverage is designed to help through the full journey, from diagnosis to treatment to recovery and beyond. Managing an illness can be difficult, but your financial security shouldn't have to be. Visit aflac.com/cancer to learn more. As a physician and a mother who treasures time with family and friends, I know how important it is to slow down and make room for the moments that really matter. One of my favorite memories is a trip I took with good girlfriends to connect on where we were in our lives. So instead of booking separate hotel rooms, we found a beautiful Airbnb home where we could stay all under one roof. We cooked together, laughed together, and shared our stories. Maintaining our relationships is how we have kept close and grown our friendship circle over the decades. Those moments of closeness are what makes travel so meaningful. Airbnb makes it possible to choose a place that truly fits the occasion, whether that's a cozy apartment for a quick getaway or a spacious home for family celebrations. And while my family has been guests, we've also experienced the other side of Airbnb as hosts. It's been wonderful to see how opening your home can bring joy to others and help make travel more personal. Hosting is not only a way to share your space, but also a way to discover the value in it. You may be surprised what your home could be worth while you're away. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host. You know what I think is the allure of your posts is that, your vulnerability. You're very vulnerable, you're very honest. And I think that you, and I'm just saying, I'm not just saying this but it's true. You've given women a new face for menopause, and now we've got so many more role models for what a successful menopause looks like. And that, to me, is, I think, what is really taking menopause out of the shadows and the stigma, and being able to say, yes, I do hormones, I feel better, I exercise, I do all the things that you should be doing. You show people how to make your breakfast smoothie in the morning. And it's helping a lot of women.
Thank you. Back at you. Come on. And so I do get excited when somebody comes up and says it's changed their lives, or they've gotten information. So then then my head is like, we got to keep going faster. We got to help more people. But I do find that really remarkable. I really, really do. Everyone's story.
Yeah. And for everyone listening, as we're taping this episode, it is Menopause Awareness Month.
Yes.
And if that's not enough, Tamsen, we talked about your documentary and, your advocacy out there every day, speaking directly to women, but you also wrote a book. So, a lot has happened in this time.
A lot has happened.
Not just a book. You wrote a New York Times bestselling book, How to Menopause. I described it more like a girlfriend's guide to menopause. Yes, it's the medical stuff, but you have a lot of other stuff that's in the book as well. So tell me a little bit about why you chose to write it that way.
I did it that way because I'm not a doctor, and because I thought that it was important to have a lot of voices in the book. I interviewed 42 experts, because I did midlife experts too on different things, yourself included. And it was important for me to give the information, the medical information, but then take it outside the doctor's office, like I said, because for me, as just a normal woman that doesn't know all of the back history of medicine, and I can't give medical advice. It was important for me to do the interviews with the experts and be able to kind of bring it down to the basics. Like, here's the basics. Here's what they're saying. Here's the research that's behind it, just because people all want to know what the data and what's science backed and everything. But then also move away from it. So the first third is like all the medical stuff, and then move into the other things that can affect everybody. Sleep. We're talking about sex. We talk about relationships, workplace, style. All those things that happen during midlife that we I feel like at midlife, we're told to just adjust, right? So it was important for me to give women some different, advice or suggestions from everybody all in one place, because I think that's what I needed. After I started feeling better, I still had other things. I wore clothes differently. I wore makeup differently. I slept differently. Sex was different. Workplace reinvention. So all of those things were part of the book. Unbeknownst to my Ira, I did do a lot of personal stories that I didn't share with him until we finally got the final copy of the manuscript, because I knew he would redline all those right out of the book. But it was really important for me to have, all of the stories in it about my personal life too.
Right. Just so people understand, storytelling is important. So because if you're trying to get your message across, you can't just go, finger wag at people and say, do this, do that. No, I think that, they see themselves. Some of it will resonate with them. Most of it, I think, will. But it also, I think, has a calming influence, because they go, oh, it's not just me.
Yes.
This is normal. But just because something is normal for your age doesn't mean that has to be acceptable. Yes, we adjust. We're different at 50 than we were at 30. Yay. But that doesn't mean that we have to give up any other part of ourselves to be able to age gracefully. I'm going to step back a little bit and ask you sort of personally about why And it gets back to the menopause question.
Sure.
Are and you were having symptoms. What is it that you think, um, or why, I should say, do you think that you waited? How long did you wait before you said, I deserve to feel better. Let me go get something or talk to someone about this?
Well, if I think back, because I didn't even know I was in perimenopause, I just knew that the bleeding was like crazy and the sleep and the weight. But I guess if I think about how long I waited, like intentionally waited. So 2019 is when I found out, and I probably did not go on hormones for another year and a half. And then when I went on them, I was like on, off, on, off. I couldn't, I was afraid, first of all, and we know why. But also I was like, oh my gosh, Tamsen, get it together. Like, why can't you just get it together? Make yourself go to sleep, make yourself lose weight, have more willpower. And so I hear that in a lot of women now. And it makes me sad that I did that to myself.
That always is heartbreaking to me because it almost as if as women, we've been socialized to think that, oh my, we have to just push past it. If I could just be stronger, if I could, grit my teeth and bear this, like we've heard some people say that they have done. And we shouldn't look at, asking for help, for accepting the care that we need as a personal failing. It is not. It is, as we go through this perimenopause and menopausal journey and perimenopause itself, 80% of women will be symptomatic in some form or fashion. And you and I are both out here, as well as a lot of other people who are, have big voices and big megaphones, trying to get that message across that, that's not okay. It's really not okay.
I wonder if there's ever, and I think we've talked about it a little bit, but I always think, I keep hearing from these women, like, how do I know? I've got my period still, and I don't think I have symptoms except that, I hear this, I don't think I have symptoms except that I can't sleep. My joints hurt, and I wake up at night in a sweat, but I don't have hot flashes. And I'm like, wait, what?
Right.
But so I always think
other
there should
than
be
that, I'm fine.
Other than that, everything's great. I always wonder, will there be, and I don't know how any of this works, but I sure would love to figure it out, a baseline to say, or maybe there is something, but not that really that I have heard of. That's like you go to get your mammogram, and that's the age you're going to go get your mammogram unless you've had a mother history of it. And then your colonoscopy, you get it here, and you get your this checked and that checked in different times. Why wouldn't there be a baseline to say, hey, it's 32 makeup, 35, whatever it is, we're going to go through the 20 big symptoms of menopause. And if you check those off, you could be perimenopausal pending it being something more important. What does it take to make that kind of edict, or, you know what I mean? Like a baseline like that? Or is that I don't even know if there's such a thing, but it feels like women want that. They want to like number or something.
Right. And, that's what I used to do when I was seeing patients in my office. And I would do what's considered, it's called anticipatory guidance, and when my patients would get to be about 35 or 40, and they would come in, they'd have their annual exam, and I'm like, hey, I'm just going to give you a little heads up here about what may be coming in the future. And we would go over these things, because the one thing that women complain about the most, other than the hot flashes, is the weight gain. It really is. And it's not, again, no personal failing of your own. It's just that that's what happens. And I would tell them that because I wanted them to be able to understand that you need to start making course corrections now. If I told you, sleeplessness is not okay. If I told you that, there are going to be some changes in your periods, if it gets to the point that it's bothersome for you, then we need to fix that. These kinds of things, then you're more likely to engage. And so, again, all I say is that, know ahead of time, because you not only know, one, it's reassuring you think you're not dying. That's helpful. But it's also helpful to know the kinds of things that we have solutions for. And please don't just accept it and say, well, maybe in another 5 or 10 years, this will be over. No. If you're bothered, bring it up because you have solutions. We do.
I love that you did the anticipatory guidance because I think that does make you feel like, oh, hey, it's okay to go call my doctor and say this because they're not going to think it's out of the blue or strange or odd because Dr. Sharon said to me, oh, this might happen. And I think that that's what's, that's what's missing with so many people right now, where they feel like, I don't know. I don't know which one of these are. I know hot flashes, weight gain, and this. And then I do think we do have the blame game though, as women. Like, oh, maybe it's not from menopause. Maybe it's just because I'm not doing something right with my body or my weight or my movement or my workout. And that was definitely mine for sure. I was completely into the self-blame for a long time. I do get excited though, the fact that now that I realize that, oh my gosh, I'm going to have like all these years ahead. So I always feel like I have a redo, of where I was at 20 or 30 years old of taking care of myself. Because when I get to be 70 years old, I don't want to look back and be like, oh God, I could have started working on that at 54. So this is my someday,
Yeah. And what I want, all of our listeners and viewers to know is that, it's helpful to know ahead of time, but it's never too late to do better. And I think that the conversations that you and I have and the conversations that we've had, across this country is really helping to destigmatize the things that as women, our bodies do. We've got to take away the shame and embarrassment and, being able to say it out loud. And I think you and I both have been amazed at the things that people will say in an open mic now. And I'm like, oh, well, that was a little personal, but okay. Look, I'm not embarrassed. No. And you're not. And I think it's really a generational shift. Don't you think that shedding the shame, we're in a different place now. And I say, yay for that.
Me too.
For that. And before we leave, I just want to ask you, I'm going to give you the final word. Do you have any thoughts or anything that you would like to share with our listeners today?
No, I'm just, you know what? I want you to take charge of your health. That's what I want. I think that is my message and mission. And know that your best years are not behind you. Like this next stage of life is pretty amazing. And I promise you, but you got to feel better to be able to see it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's time for the last part of the show where I give you my doctor's orders and leave you with takeaways from today's conversation. Number 1, menopause is inevitable. Suffering is not. If your quality of life is impacted, there is no honor in suffering. Please get help. Number 2, every person's menopausal journey is different. If you are symptomatic, don't forget that hormone therapy is the most effective treatment. Don't be afraid. Don't let fear or misinformation get in the way of being your best self. HRT is not for everyone, but every person should have the factual information to decide for themselves. And number 3, don't fear menopause. When you are healthy and symptom-free, these can be the best years of your life. Tamsen and I made major career changes after menopause and are happier now than ever. So don't accept feeling bad as a consequence of aging. For more information on this episode and the M Factor documentary, check out our show notes. Have questions? Send them to drsharonmalone.com and click on The Second Opinion. Join me each week on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you hear, leave a review and follow so you never miss an episode. Until next time, take care.